All right, we are back to the Resilient Events podcast. It's so funny. This is part two of a continuation of podcast number 17, where we talked about hybrid events, and I'm glad we're doing part two, and we didn't try to do an hour-long episode of all of this
Would have
stuff.
been way too much.
It's too much info, and people that are listening to this hopefully are have lots of things. So we thank you for listening to this stuff, because it we hope that you get a lot of value from it. So we're going to jump right into hybrid formats. And in the last episode, we talked about 3 hybrid formats. So we're going to talk about the next 3. So what's the first one we're going to talk about?
No, we're going to talk about what we did last time, just as
Why?
a recap, because we need a short recap.
I just said
what if they didn't hear it? What if they didn't hear the first one?
They can go back and listen,
but they might not.
Okay.
So the first kinds were classic, which is like the hybrid you think of, where like there's an in-person event and some remote attendees.
Yes.
Reverse is like mostly on-site attendees and off-site pitchers or off-site speakers.
Pitchers.
You can tell I work with startup events way too much.
Right. And we just talked about that. So, yeah.
And then finally is after party hybrid, which is like probably the most fun and easiest, lowest cost setup. That's where you just have like an online event, and then as many people as possible go and meet at like a local pub, a brewery, whatever. So it's totally informal. Doesn't need to pay for the venue. They're fun. But so that was like the show focused on the smaller type of hybrid events. This show is focused on the bigger
ones. Yeah. Which one's your favorite? I mean,
out of these ones?
No, out of the first half, or the like, are you gonna be more excited to talk about?
I think after party, honestly. It's like it's just because it's so easy to set up and can just be so much fun and so low cost. It's just like how do you not do it when it's sometimes, right?
Yeah. And I think that's the easiest one to like not overthink. I feel like a lot of people overthink when you say hybrid or any type of event, and you're just like too much, keep it simple.
Yeah.
All right, let's jump into it.
So yeah, this week we've got 3. So Oscars party, industry week, and distributed conferences. Fancy names, right?
Yes.
Is that intriguing or what? So we'll put Oscars party first. So what this means is people have been to an Oscars party, but it's like also just kind of like watching football games, watching hockey games, sports games from home. It's like a central broadcast with a bunch of smaller like watch parties.
Yes.
Right?
Like The Bachelorette.
Like The Bachelorette. There you go.
When people watch The Bachelorette.
Exactly. But I think just to be like a little bit higher level with it, there should be some kind, it's not really just watch party. I think they need to be like interactive. Otherwise it is like just a watch party, right?
Yes. Yeah, I think there's really simple ways to keep the watch parties interactive with the broadcast, which we probably can talk about, but it makes the collective really involved, and then it's like a whole experience. And Julius just talked about this morning on LinkedIn, and this will be a few weeks late, but he said something like events are no longer just events, they're experiences. And I mean, I think we talked about events all the time, but I'm like, there's experiences. Like, why am I going to take my time to do that? So
fair. Yeah. And then like, so the type of group that this works for. So like generally like some kind of like organization with a really strong like central admin, and then also like some smaller, maybe less strong. I just mean like maybe budget wise, maybe number of people in the city, etc. Like some more distributed people. So like an example could be from my memory is like the CX, like so the Customer Experience International Association. So they have like the main office has money. They have smaller branches that regularly have small events, and then for like some of their annual events, like once a quarter, they'll do this kind of broadcast event where like the local people, they don't have to fly to to whatever
Yeah.
Washington, right?
Mhm.
They just go and see their regular friends, and they get to participate with everybody else from across the country at
Mhm.
once.
Yeah, and I think, there's another example that I'm potentially working on in early 2024 is, large central location in the Bay Area, and they love getting together and talking about, the big important things, the big important topics, but there is gonna be other virtual type things, happening at the same time. It's like a huge thing, right? So, anyways, it's just another
Was that
example. Mhm.
was that your phone?
Yeah.
We can delete that off the audio, right? Uh,
No,
no,
it's real life.
okay, got it. Um, but yeah, what was that organization that you
Oh,
might
I
be
can't
working with?
say because the event hasn't happened yet,
You do
but
so many secret events. It's amazing. Um,
hey, I signed an NDA. I'm not allowed to.
got it. That's fair. You're just in the background.
Yes.
Let's see. Other like just kind of like tips and tricks for these. Yeah. Like number one thing is it's all about the shared experience. Like people aren't going to really care to watch a broadcast, or at least not for very long. So making about the shared experience, like one way to do that is like just have a video feed, like we heard from the magician last week, right?
Mhm, mhm.
Having a video feed of people enjoying themselves in the different parts of the country and kind of sharing that with everybody else, just so that you just know that it's all happening at once, right?
Oh, yeah, that brings up an idea, a thing that I was a part of. I was an attendee to a virtual event when, soccer came back, and, like, we were all watching the soccer match, and then they had us, um, well, it was virtual mostly, right? Obviously, it was still during COVID times, but then they had us on screen, like, clapping and, like, reacting to the match.
Yeah,
So, it was like a collective experience, and then there was people at the pub watching the same central broadcast. So, I mean, if you think about it, not necessarily Oscars party, but any sports, like you said, hockey, I will say soccer
yeah,
just because 'cause we're in, you know, USA, Canada. But yeah, those are all like good examples how there's interaction. Um, but I think that the trick and the thing to think about is how do you get that in-person audience feel like they're involved in that broadcast? And is
right.
there like an actual thing you can do to get them involved outside of just watching?
Sure. Yeah. So watching, showing each other this videos of each other live, which is amazing.
Mhm.
And then having people interact with the speakers on stage by submitting questions.
Right.
Having
Mhm.
those speakers the question, pull up the question with the details, like where is that person from, what branch are they from,
Mhm.
just to kind of make everybody feel involved, right?
Yeah, you could also do, like, pre-recorded questions and,
Yeah,
like, put them on the broadcast, and then that person is actually in the audience at, like, one of the watch parties. So, like, you see, okay, there is interaction,
right. Yeah,
like,
like
this
come on
is
screen. It's like 30 seconds. Like, hey, I'm John Harris
yeah,
from Vancouver, and here's my
mhm,
question. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, that'd
and
be good
then
as well.
like, the people in Vancouver are like, "Oh
Yeah,
my god,
yeah,
it's
Vancouver.
look, it's John!" So,
I
yeah.
know him. Um,
That that voice in the beginning, that needs to be our little clip. Yeah, okay.
um, what else though? Like having like another thing is just having like competitions between the different
Mhm,
groups, right? Just
mhm.
having I don't know if you have any ideas for this. I don't have one off the top of my head, but it's having the people kind of like in some way competing for the kind of
Yeah. It could be like posting on social that you're taking a video or a picture at the event and you use the hashtag and then at the end the most hashtags from specific location would win
yeah.
something or you know
Such a
I'm
social
sure
media person.
I'm sure
Hashtags. You don't even use
I
those
mean that
anymore?
okay, like I know that like hashtags are like kind of like taboo, but like they are very good to like correlate or I don't know the right word, get everyone's like information together in one. So you don't have to sift through a bunch of like feed stuff, right? So
Got it.
anyway, but
Quizzes could be another one. Quizzes.
people have to follow directions in order for it to make sure it works, because sometimes people will not use the right hashtag and then they're not involved. So
That's fair. Yeah, otherwise like quizzes, polls, other like kind of like in live contests could be cool too.
Mhm.
Um, what else? Even just like sharing ridiculous photos could be fun, right? And just bringing
Yeah.
those on screen.
Yeah.
Uh,
Uh, now I want to plan a fun event like that. I'm like,
that
oh,
sounds
this
like a
is
good time, doesn't it?
yeah.
It's more than just watching a broadcast at that point, right?
For sure. Yeah.
Um, shall we move on to
Wow.
item number? I can't add 3 to 2. It's 5.
Five.
Number 5.
3 plus 2 is what? That's the
Yeah,
quiz.
I'm in events. I didn't go to school, right? It's like the rest of us. So the number 2, local industry week, and so probably a lot of people have seen this before. So what it
Mhm.
means is just like a collection of smaller events by independent hosts, but all like under one banner.
Yes.
And so each event can either be just like, a terrible Zoom event or an event on something cool like Buzz It, or a YouTube live stream, or it can be in person, or it can be hybrid. And that way,
Mhm.
like if people just go to a mix of those things like during the week, then it's that full hybrid experience. You're getting, it's accessible to basically everyone. Everybody gets to go to what fits their life. Everybody gets to interact.
Isn't that, I mean, in my opinion, isn't that like almost any event that's big? Like they have multiple events happening. They just don't brand it as like the week or like a series of days. I mean, if they don't brand it properly.
Like any big event? I wouldn't say any big event. No, because most
Well,
like really big events, like if it's a week-long conference, it's like one organizer that's kind of putting on everything, right? Whereas what
mhm,
I'm thinking of is like, for instance, Vancouver Startup Week. Um,
mhm.
they get people to submit their event ideas like months in advance, and they
Yeah,
plot them out on a calendar, make sure there's nothing conflicting. But it's really a bunch of independently organized events,
yeah.
all under one kind of central registration system.
I hear you. I see the difference that you're saying. I think that there a lot of the events that I've been to, like being from San Diego, like I've seen so many different big conferences that like there are other people capitalizing on the fact that there's a like Comic Con. Like Comic
Yeah,
Con is like in town and like Comic Con organizers are not collaborating with the bowling alley down the road, but the bowling alley is gonna have like wear your costume night bowling alley and like they don't maybe necessarily get advertised on the Comic Con website as a Comic Con event, but
yeah.
like they're into it, you know. So I think you can do it both ways, but it's a good idea for people who's involved in any big wants to get their name out. Like they plan events around a big conference that not necessarily needs to be organized by the main organizer. So,
So it's
anyways,
like a pirate conference.
yeah. And I don't
Conference
think people
pirater.
are like against it. Like I don't think Comic Con would come against that thing and say, as long as you're not using the logo to be like, hey, this is a Comic Con sponsored event. You know, I don't
Yeah,
know. Like I did, we did a skee ball tournament during Social Media Marketing World. It wasn't organized by Social Media Examiner, but there were people there participating. We made shirts and it was like a whole experience. And we invited people to come watch, but it wasn't organized by Social Media Examiner. So I don't know.
Marissa, the event pirate. Where's your hat? I love that.
It's better than being a dinosaur.
Yes,
That's for sure.
nice. Awesome.
Those are
Um,
more informal, like, fun events, but yeah, I'm here I'm with you on the, like, startup week or, like, DC startup week that I'm seeing advertised now. It's definitely more, collectively organized under one umbrella and different things, and I think choose your own adventure is what comes to mind.
yeah,
Like, is it hybrid? I mean, is it an online event? Is it in person? Is it, both?
yeah.
So
Yeah, and then I think like just kind of tips and tricks for those. Number one thing would just spend a little bit of time picking a great collaborative scheduling platform. And so my top recommendations for this would be Sketch and Emamo.
mhm.
Are you familiar?
Nope, I
Okay.
am not. I don't
Any
know those names, and I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna have you tell me about them."
Got it. So Sketch is, I think, Sketch, um, like one of the kind of like classic collaborative scheduling platforms.
Mhm,
Um, it works really well. You can see the other people that are
mhm.
going. Um, and then actually one of the founders of it then built Emamo, which is like similar but does more. And so it's interesting. What it also does is it like pre-schedules your social media posting. Right. So
Oh,
like as you like add speakers to your event registration pages and stuff, it like creates outputs for you for
that's
social
cool.
media and helps you schedule them too.
Wow, that sounds really cool, and intuitive. How much does it cost?
$1 billion. Yeah, no,
I bet.
it's not that bad. But yeah, are you familiar with any others? That's the only thing I know. Otherwise, I've seen people do it with Eventbrite, but then it's like a bunch of smaller events, and then it's like one central administrator. You don't have enough like sub accounts, and it's just kind of tougher, right? A lot more admin for the central person.
I've used Hova or Hova. I don't know how
Wova,
you.
nobody knows how to say that. It's like
We need to get them one. How do you
only
say it?
only event tech companies with a name worse than ours.
Hova, Hova, Hova. Oh, okay. Yeah, I've used that one. I like that one a lot. For the scheduling and then also the community aspect. Like you can literally, I think I've chatted on that like 3 or 4 weeks ahead of time before a conference just to
Nice.
prep to get there. I mean, okay, like full disclosure, it was a social media conference. So, like,
Okay.
of course, everyone's connected. And
Uh,
then the other thing is to use one event networking interaction. I guess what I just talked about
yeah,
to
yeah.
ease setup and increase networking.
If you
So,
can, you could have it all separate, which might be easier for like lower budget. But if you want to have like a better overall attendee experience, at least like provide the option to your individual hosts
yeah,
of like using one kind of central platform that will make it easier for attendees to make those connections. Because like these industry weeks, that it's like the number one reason they're there, obviously,
yeah,
right?
yeah. And don't do it the week before.
Yeah,
I'm
that
just
makes sense.
thinking like the benefit of all of these is to like effectively plan ahead of time and not just think about it at last minute like, "Oh, look, we have this thing. Sign up. Make sure you sign up." So,
Yeah, never sell the thing as signing up for the thing to sign up for the thing. That's right. Some
oh,
good tips. Um, moving on to item number 6, the final of 6. Um, distributed conferences. So this doesn't have anything to do with blockchain,
okay.
everybody.
Yeah, sounds like Bitcoin,
Yeah.
okay, NFTs, but
Yeah.
that's not we're gonna get picked up by AI, and then people are
Yeah.
gonna think like this is Bitcoin podcast.
We'll be rich. Let's see. So, what this means is it's just really a combo of the other 5 formats kind of thrown together.
Mhm,
Um, but I think like what's important is like who this works for. So it's like a bigger like national organization that has some like very strong like local branches.
okay.
So where they,
Example?
let's see. I'm trying to think of one from recent history. um but essentially like where they would have enough like where instead of having like one like thing that was based in like Washington DC, it's like okay, look, New York, Seattle, and
Mhm,
LA have like really strong groups,
mhm,
right? And so they all organize their own broadcast for a watch party, and on the
mhm,
other like an Oscars party, and on the other days they're like just attending the watch party of the
mhm,
Oscars
mhm.
party. Does that make sense? I messed it
Yeah.
up.
Multi multi-night, events.
Think of the best example right now, but
Yeah.
one is not coming to mind. Perhaps somebody watching will have an idea.
The thing is, I think a lot of these that, from that my perspective, the national and international organizations, they do it for their members. And so there's not like a lot of promotion to the non-members, to like the regular people. And so that's why it's hard to like come up with one off memory because it's not something that like, oh, like
That's fair. Yeah.
I need to attend this because this is something like we're all going to go watch the Oscars or watch a sporting event because that's general audience. These are like, no, I'm attending this because I'm a member of, or I am a alumni of this organization. right? So,
Yeah.
and
Fair.
they don't care about putting it on LinkedIn
Yeah.
really for us
Yeah.
to find out
It's
about.
for the people that are already in it. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
it makes sense. Um, but yeah, I think the just kind of tips and tricks for this one, they go back to the others, just like having people interact, having people compete, like all these different ways.
Mhm.
One good thing is just to make the producing branches be in a bit of a competition with each other, like who has the best night, right?
Mhm.
Who
Mhm.
has the most engaging, who has the most people tune in, who has the most people participate.
Yeah. I may ask the founder of the organization that I'm going tonight if they've done anything like this because they're a startup founders like organization and they have multiple branches, but they have like when they're pitch, it's like North America, South America, different nights, but then they have the in-person thing to watch. So it's kind of a combination of watch party, after party, Oscars party and after party,
Got
and
it.
distributed conferences over
Got
this.
it.
It's
Wow.
almost like all of them, right?
Yeah.
I'm just like thinking about it. I'm like, it does each one of their events, like, but I don't have to go to South America, but I could still feel a part of like the finals when like the
Right.
winners of all of those go to like the final global
Got it.
uh,
What is the
competition.
organization?
Founders Live.
Founders Live. Nice.
Yeah.
Nick Hughes and
Yes.
yeah, yeah,
Hi,
I've
Nick.
spoken with him a couple times. Hey Nick. Good dude.
Yeah, I produced for one of their pitch competitions early on in the pandemic, and I've never met him, so I'm gonna meet him tonight because
No way.
he's in
Nice.
Nashville.
Well,
So
tell him
yeah.
John from Buzzet says hello. Yeah, I got to
Okay.
meet with him a couple times when we did some work with him about a year and a bit ago.
Nice.
Super exciting. Some of the biggest events we've worked with.
Nice.
Yeah. And
So
that's
you
just
took my job
going
then.
just like way back. One of the first times I pitched was at a Founders Live event.
Really?
And we won. Yeah, this is in like, I don't know, 20, maybe it's been like 2018 or something like that.
Oh, nice. Yeah. I helped with one of the North America like, I think the Pacific Northwest competition, and, like, he wanted to work together, but, like, at the time, they didn't have the funding for, like, someone to help produce. I've always stayed in touch with him, so we'll see how that turns out. Maybe I can tell him I'm working with you now, and, like, he'll
There
get
you
like I'm
go.
not he'll get re-energized.
Yeah,
It's not necessarily they didn't like you or your services, they're so busy thinking
fair.
about other things, so
Yeah, flying around the world, that Nick Hughes.
right?
Yeah, awesome.
Cool.
But yeah, I think so. We've kind of covered all those 6 topics. Any kind of final things to say? I think like just overall, it's always about just making wherever those audience members are, making them know, just like Harrison Kramer, the world's best
Yeah.
virtual magician, said, just let other people know that other people that are watching are enjoying the same stuff at the same time. It's
Yes.
just all about making it a shared experience, not like a one-off experience. That's like such a huge part of the fun.
Okay, I have a question for you. Do you feel like you could help people figure out what type of hybrid event they want based on what you know in your experience? Do you feel like if someone was like, "Ooh, I want to have an event, hybrid
Absolutely.
event,"
Yeah. Yeah.
like
Just by
it
asking them enough questions,
Mhm,
kind of center on it. Because yeah, hybrid, that is one of the reasons we made this kind of 6 hybrid game plans doc is like, what the
mhm.
hell does hybrid mean?
Yeah.
Like people hear it, it sounds scary, it sounds complicated, but some of the options
Mhm.
are so simple.
Yeah.
And really once you kind of pick the one that's going to be right for you, then it's really not that difficult to execute.
Mhm.
It does take some practice, but it's not mind boggling.
Yeah. I think from my perspective as a project manager, actually executor when it comes to the virtual side, I get excited when people don't have their, like, set, like, plan, right? Like, I'm like, "Ooh, cool, we can, like, create something." But a lot of times that comes with, like, time and cost, and people don't have the money to do that. So
Yeah.
it's like, it'd be nice to, like, have some type of, ability to, let's have a conversation and let's see if, we can figure out what type of format is the best way for you. And sometimes that's all they need. They don't necessarily need a producer. They
Yeah.
just need to talk to someone who knows the different formats and the different ways to execute it and then give them the keys and they can figure it out. I'm glad that I know someone like you that has experience in putting in all these types of hybrid events, because I can learn from it, but also, like, I think there's a lot of different ways you can make them great with the creative side, so
You
where
like the chaos, I guess.
I don't I like the creative aspect of it. Like,
Yeah.
I that's where I really, like, thrive, but, sometimes you can't be in a creative mind when you're, like, thinking about, like, all this time you're spending and not getting compensated properly, and I think people just need to understand that when you're trading time for nothing,
Yeah.
it's kind of like, how can you be involved in these projects? And anyways, that's
Yeah, I
another
like that.
just
I like that kinda idea thread, though. We need to make this stuff a little bit more accessible so people can kinda figure out which direction they wanna go, and then, hybrid will seem less scary,
yeah.
and, maybe more people can get it like, pull off better hybrid events, and um, then we
Yeah.
change the world through connections, our mission.
Yeah. I mean, we're always available by phone. We can definitely arrange that, and I think that sometimes that'll just help people with a good framework, and not necessarily, like, planning a whole event, but,
Yeah.
um, this is very high level that we offered, but I think there's definitely more to expand on, but we don't wanna keep you too long because it's a lot of information to consume.
There we go. Well, I guess that's it for this show, and we'll, plan to come back for another one. I think we're almost at 20 now, right? Good for us.
Yes,
High
yes.
five,
High
virtual
five.
high five.
Virtual high.
Um, but, one final thing I wanted to say, and I just can't even remember. Oh, of course, it's the CTA.
Yes,
The show notes, more videos, etc. rizpod.live, rizpod dot
yes,
live.
yes, we
Find
are,
us. We're on the internet.
All right, subscribe if you're watching on YouTube or hopefully listening on a podcast platform by now. So,
There we go. Okay. Till next time, everybody. Bye.
bye.